Welcome back. This is part 2 of week 8, Understanding Family Dynamics. We left off last time talking about step parenting, and we are starting today at the rewards of being a step parent. So some rewards of being a step parent is you've been given the opportunity to play a central role in a child's life. There's pleasures and support of having an extended family network. Opportunities for your children to develop strong relationships with step-siblings and half-siblings, and opportunities for you to build a strong relationship with your partner and your stepchildren. Making your step or blended family a success. Trying to make a blended family a replica of your first family or the ideal nuclear family can often set family members up for confusion, frustration, and disappointment. Instead, embrace the differences and consider the basic elements that make a successful blended family. So, that includes a solid marriage and relationship. Without the relationship, there is no family. It's harder to take care of the relationship in a blended family because you don't have the time to adjust as just being a couple, like you would in most first marriages or relationships where you start having children together. You'll have to grow and mature into the relationship while also parenting. Being civil, if family members act civil towards one another on a regular basis rather than ignoring or purposely trying to hurt or completely withdrawing from each other, you're on track. All relationships maintain like a level of respect. This is not just referring to the child's behavior towards the adults. Respect should be given not just based on age, but also based on the fact that you're all family members now. Compassion for everyone's development. Members of your blended family may be at various life stages and have different needs. So think of a teenager versus a toddler, for example. They're going to have different needs. And so you need to be compassionate of those different needs. They may also be at different stages in accepting the new family. Each child's going to adjust in their own time, in their own way, and family members need to understand and honor those differences. And leaving room for growth. After a few years of being blended, hopefully the family will grow and members will choose to spend more time together and feel closer to one another. So planning your step family or blended family, take your time. Give everyone the chance to get used to each other and to the idea of a relationship and forming a new family. Too many changes at once can be unsettling for children. Blended families have the highest success rate if the couple waits 2 years or more after a divorce or a separation to remarry, instead of just piling on one drastic family change on top of another one. Don't expect to fall in love with your partner's children overnight. Get to know them. Love and affection both take time to develop. Find ways to experience real life together. Taking both sets of kids to a theme park every time you get together may sound like a lot of fun, but it isn't reflective of everyday life. Try to get the kids used to your partner and and if they have children, to their children as well, in daily life situations like going grocery shopping or going to the park or having a family movie night, stuff like that. Make parenting changes before you marry. Agree with your new partner how you intend to parent together, and then make necessary adjustments to your parenting style before you remarry. Because, like we talked about before, too much changes at once can be unsettling for children. It'll make it easier and a smoother transition for your kids, and they won't become angry at your new spouse for initiating those changes that come along with anything you decide to do. Don't allow ultimatums. Your kids or your partner may put you in a situation where you feel you have to choose between them. Remind them that you want both sets of people in your life. Insist on respect. You can't insist on people liking each other, but you can insist that they treat one another with respect. And then limit your expectations. You may give a lot of time, energy, and love and affection to your new partner's kids that they may not return back to you immediately. Think of it as making small investments that may one day yield a lot of interest. Given the right support, kids should gradually adjust to the prospect of the relationship and being a part of a new family. It is your job to communicate openly, meet their needs for security, and give them plenty of time to make a successful transition. Recognize the losses of your stepchildren or children. No one in families experiences more loss than children. This truth is difficult for most adults to recognize simply because they are consumed with their own losses. Children, because of a lack of maturity and coping skills, need more help processing their grief than adults. The death of a parent or a parental divorce or separation means children lose control of their lives. They may lose contact with their parents, grandparents, siblings, other family members, and lose the continuity of the living arrangements and routines that they're used to. Here are a few changes that bring loss to children. Not wanting parents to divorce, not wanting to change residences or move between two homes, a new step-parent they didn't ask for, and the death of the dream of parental reconciliation. So sometimes when parents start dating again, those kids have that hope, like my parents are going to get back together. So when another person enters into the picture, that's a dream that just got crushed for them, and so they have to grieve that loss. New step-siblings, having to share a room with a sibling or a step-sibling, the loss of a role of a family, the loss of a role in the family when remarriage brings other people into the household, loss of familiarity with schools, teachers, neighborhoods, friends, activities, and traditions, and financial pressures, and changes in rules and expectations from their step-parent or parent.
When you're talking about like loss in that sense, you'll see like the different stages of grief in those areas too. So there's going to be times that they're going to be sad, and there's going to be times they're going to be angry, and there's going to be times they're going to be accepting, and all of that is normal emotions, and the best way is to accept those emotions. You can make sure that they're respecting you and the person and the other people in your family, but allowing them to have those emotions and work through them is really important.
The next slide is dealing with the death of a parent. When a parent has died, the remarriage of the remaining parent may trigger unfinished grieving in children. So give them that space and time to grieve and let them go through that process. Seek help if you need it too.
Also, when dealing with the death of a parent, they will grieve in every stage of their life. So like if the parent dies when they're 6, when they turn 10, they're going to grieve, and they're going to grieve differently. When they turn 15, 16, they're going to grieve and grieve differently, because they're still developing and processing those things.
And they're hitting milestones without the presence of that other parent.
Right. That's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Bonding as a step family or a blended family. You will increase your chances of successful bonding with your new stepchildren by thinking about what they need. Age, gender, and personality are not irrelevant to this, but all children have some basic needs and wants that once met can help you establish a rewarding relationship. Children want to feel safe and secure. Children want to be able to count on their parents and step-parents. Children of divorce have already felt upset with people that they trust but because they let them down, and they may not be eager to give second chances to a new step-parent. They want to be loved. Kids like to see and feel your affection, although it should come in a gradual process. You shouldn't just like shower them with a bunch of stuff and then just let it fade off, or just gradually drop off, or drop off a cliff. It should be a gradual process. They want to feel valued. Children often feel unimportant or invisible when it comes to decision making in the new family. Recognize their role in the family and when they can help you make those decisions. That's where that healthy communication week, where we talk about family meetings, this is going to be important for them to still feel valued and heard. They want to feel heard and emotionally connected. Creating an open and honest environment free of judgment will help kids feel heard and emotionally connect to a new step-parent. Show them that you can view the situation from their perspective. Appreciate and encourage them. Children of all ages respond to praise and encouragement and like to feel appreciated. Limits and boundaries. Children may not think they need limits or boundaries, but the lack of those sends the signal to the child that they're unworthy of their parents' time and care and attention, because keeping those boundaries and setting those boundaries is a lot of work for parents. And so if you're not willing to put in that work to set them or to keep consistent with them, they're going to start thinking that they're unworthy of your time and care and attention. As a new step-parent, you shouldn't step in as an enforcer at first, but work with your spouse to set limits. Let your stepchildren set the pace. Every child is different and will show you how fast or how slow you can get to know them and them still feel safe and secure. Some kids may be more open and willing to engage, while there will also be shy and introverted children that may require you to slow down and give them more time to warm up to you. Given enough space, time, patience, and interest, most children will eventually give you a chance. So even if it seems like it's taking forever, if you're consistent and you keep going and you show them that you're not just going to give up, it'll happen eventually, so don't get discouraged. Use routines and rituals to bond. Creating family routines and rituals can help you bond with your new stepfamily and reunite the family as a whole. Plan to incorporate at least one new family ritual, such as Sunday visits to the beach, a weekly game night, special ways to celebrate family birthdays and holidays. Establishing regular meals, for example, offers a chance for you to talk and bond with your children and stepchildren, as well as encourage healthy eating habits. So there are some ways that if our kids are struggling to adjust to a new blended family, that we can help them. Kids at different ages and genders tend to adjust differently to blended families. The physical and emotional needs of a 2-year-old girl are different than those of a 13-year-old boy. Don't mistake differences in development and age for differences in fundamental needs. Just because a teenager may take a long time to accept your love and affection doesn't mean that they don't want or need it. You will need to adjust your approach with each different age level and gender, but your goal of establishing a trusting and loving relationship is the same.
Disabilities are also going to affect this. So if you are dating somebody who has a child that has developmental disabilities, you're going to want to research that and figure out kind of the basics before you start to try to make any changes or connect with the child. Just so you know, for example, like somebody with autism, they have sensory issues, so trying to go in for a hug or touch them, it can actually trigger them to be like upset.
So from the age range of 10 and below, you can help your child, helping children adjust ages 10 and below. This age group may adjust more easily because they thrive on a cohesive family relationship. They are more accepting of a new adult. They feel competitive for their parents' attention, and they have more daily needs to be met. So keeping those things in mind and being attentive to those needs and making sure that they're getting that attention and not having to compete for it, because if they're competing for it, they're definitely could be doing things they shouldn't be doing for attention, such as misbehavior. Helping children adjust from age 10 to 14. This age group may have a difficult time adjusting to a step family. They may need more time to bond before accepting a new person as a disciplinarian. And they may not demonstrate their feelings openly, but may be even more sensitive than young children when it comes to needing love, support, discipline, and affection. So giving them that time and that space to get to bond with you and not really trying to force it, letting it obviously still try to do things with them, but don't make it seem like coercive.
And don't try to buy their affection.
Yes.
When we were talking earlier about making sure that it's realistic family experiences, teenagers especially, they're going to pick up that all of your stuff has to do with going out or going to the mall or spending money, and it's going to feel not as genuine.
Yeah. So 15 and older, they may have less involvement in the step family life because they're teenagers, they got their own stuff going on. They may prefer to separate from the family as they form their own identities, and they may not be open in their expression of affection or sensitivity, but still want to feel important, loved, and secured. So some gender differences for helping children adjust. Both boys and girls in step families tend to prefer verbal affection, such as praise and compliments, rather than physical closeness like hugs and kisses. Girls tend to be uncomfortable with physical displays of affection from their stepfathers, and boys seem to accept a stepfather more quickly than girls do. This is an audio verification question. If you were to help your children adjust to a blended family, what are some ways or some things that you could do with each child according to their age? Those of you who are joining via Zoom or in person do not have to do this, but for those of you who are doing it self-paced through the Google Classroom, please write this question down and respond to turn in the appropriate place in the Google Classroom. Pause here if necessary. Some challenges of a step or blended family. As you blend two families, differences in parenting, discipline, lifestyle, etc. can create changes and become a source of frustration for the children. Agreeing on consistent guidelines about rules, chores, discipline, and allowances will show the kids that you and your partner intend to deal with issues in a similar and fair way. Age differences do play a role in this. In blended families, there may be children with birthdays closer to one another than possible with natural siblings, or the new step-parent may be only a few years older than the eldest child. Parental inexperience. One parent may never have had children before, so they may have no experience with dealing with kids in different ages and being knowledgeable about the things that those children at those stages may go through. Changes in family relationships. If both parents remarry or recouple with partners who have existing families, it can mean children suddenly find themselves with different roles in the blended family, So like a child who used to be the oldest may now be the middle child. For example, it's that change may come with also changes in responsibilities. Like maybe they used to be responsible for doing this, and now that there's another child that's older, you trust them to be more responsible with that, such as like watching a sibling or something. Difficulty in accepting a new parent. If children have spent a long time with a one-parent family or still nurture the hopes of their parents getting back together, they may have difficulty accepting this new person entering their lives. Coping with demands of others in blended families. Planning family events can get complicated, especially if there are custody considerations to take into account. Children may grow frustrated that vacations, parties, or weekend trips now require complicated arrangements to include their new step family. There can be some changes also in family traditions. Most families have different ideas on how annual events, such as holidays and birthdays and vacations, should be spent. Kids may feel resentful if they're forced to go along with someone else's routine, or if there's changes in those things for them. So try to find some common ground and create new traditions for your blended family. And then parental insecurities. A step-parent may feel anxious about how they compare to a child's natural parents, or they may grow resentful if the stepchildren compare them unfavorably to their natural parents. Some boundaries step-parents shouldn't cross. So trying to take the place of their natural parents, spanking or disciplining stepkids without the consent of not just the parent that you're in a relationship with, but also the other parent, and having those like boundaries set. Assuming a position of authority often too soon. Getting involved in parenting discussions between your partner and their ex. Getting involved in arguments between your stepchild and their parent. Ignoring or countering the wishes of the ex. Bad-mouthing your partner's ex. Pressuring your new partner to always put you first. And seeing your stepchildren's needs for one-on-one time with their natural parents as a threat to your relationship with their parent. So ways you can strengthen your step family or blended family include establishing trust, which is crucial to creating strong, cohesive blended families. At first, children may feel uncertain about their new family and resist your efforts to get to know them. This is often simple apprehension about having to share their parent with a new partner and potentially step-siblings. Try not to take their negative attitudes personally. Instead, build trust and strengthen your new blended family by creating clear boundaries, keeping all parents involved, and communicating often and openly.
When parents get on well together, their children do better. But we know it can be hard for couples to keep their relationships happy and healthy. Around 1 in 5 married or cohabiting couples are in relationships classified as distressed. That means they argue a lot, regularly consider separating, or regret being in their relationship. Conflict between parents can be easily triggered, often by common things that upset normal daily life. This can be problems with money, or at work, or because of ill health. And around half of all couples say their relationships become strained after the arrival of a new baby. But it can be easy to forget that when relationships are strained, it is children who suffer the most. Children exposed to frequent conflict are at greater risk of depression and anxiety, and are more prone to problems with their physical health. They're also more likely to develop behaviour problems and to do worse at school. And this can have a knock-on effect later in life on an adults' relationships, employment, and their psychological well-being. And that's quite apart from the cost to society. Family breakdown has been estimated to account for £47 billion worth of public spending every year. But this is a problem we have the means to address.
Oops, I did not mean to hit replay. So tips for a healthy step or blended family is all brothers and sisters have fallouts, even step siblings, so don't assume that all family arguments are the result of living in a blended family. Be aware of favoritism, be fair, don't overcompensate by favoring your stepchildren to get them to like you. This is a common mistake made with the best intentions in an attempt to avoid indulging your biological children. So making so that you can overcompensate and start accidentally favoring your stepchildren to make them feel like you don't favor your own children, if that makes sense. Make special arrangements. If some of the kids just visit, make sure they have a locked cupboard for their personal things. Bringing toothbrushes and other standard items each time they come to your home makes them feel like a visitor, not a member of a blended family. Find support. Locate step-parenting support organizations in your community. You can learn that you can learn from and learn how other blended families have overcome some of the challenges you may be experiencing as well. Spend time every day with your child. Try to spend at least one quiet time period with your child daily. Even in the best blended families, children still need to enjoy some alone time with each parent. So on the last slide, we talked about parental overcompensation, and this can happen not just between step families, but it can also happen in single parent family homes and a multitude of other homes. Overcompensation is just taking excessive measures in an attempt to correct or make amends for an error, weakness, or a problem. Compensation in parenting that creates a problem. Overcompensation in parenting creates a problem rather than fixing an old one. So what this could look like, for example, is so a mom feels bad that dad didn't come to kid's birthday party or recital or a concert or something, so they shower that child in gifts or anything that they think will make them feel better, to apologize for that.
An example that might be more pointed to a blended family is a step parent that feels bad because they know that their stepchild is having a hard time, so they allow them to be disrespectful, in a way of overcompensating for the fact that they don't really want them there.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, I was also thinking overcompensation, like what we see a lot here at the shelter when women come in with their kids, and so they overcompensate for basically apologizing for their abusers, the way they treated the kids. So letting them do whatever they want whenever they want, buying them whatever they want whenever they want, just to kind of apologize for the negative things that they've had to experience.
Right.
So the cycle of overcompensation is the child experiencing feelings of disappointment, or the parent experiencing feelings of disappointment, feeling like a failure, feeling inadequate, which leads to the overcompensating action, which then leads to an undesired result because those kids are learning that they can do things maybe that they normally wouldn't be able to do. They're learning that if I make my parent feel like this, then I get this.
You're basically teaching them how to manipulate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then comes right back to the feeling of disappointment, and so it's a cycle. So how do we break that cycle? Ask yourself a few questions. Am I trying to make up for a past mistake of my own or my parents by going overboard in a particular way? Is my action really doing my child a favor, or is it doing my child a disservice? And is the desired result occurring? Remember, there is nothing wrong with learning from the past or from your own true failures and inadequacies. This helps us become humble and become more willing to change when we can recognize our own past mistakes and failures and inadequacies, but we don't have to overcompensate for them. So maybe some other questions you can ask yourself is where do you believe you might be overcompensating in your parenting, and what can you do to pull it down a couple of notches so your children actually benefit from your behavior, and it's not considered overcompensation, it's just you being a parent. And maybe you did do something that hurt their feelings and you do feel the need to apologize. That doesn't mean shower them in a new PlayStation, whatever number they're on now, 5, 6.
The best way to, if you make a mistake, the most beneficial thing to do for your child or your stepchild is to sit down and be like, hey,
I made a mistake.
I made a mistake and I'm sorry, and
this is what's going to be different next time.
Right. If you feel like you need to explain the choice you made, explain the choice you make, but tell them what's going to be different and then follow through. Because that's going to teach them communication, that's going to teach them that it's okay to make mistakes, that's going to teach them that it's okay to apologize.
And accept responsibility.
Right. That is the best way to handle disappointing your kid.
Yeah, not overcompensation.
Right. Overcompensation teaches them that if they get mad enough or they get sad enough, they can get whatever they want.
Right.
Overcompensation for our children is a hard topic for so many reasons, and I'll start with the first one, which is just the mindfulness of going through your mind and thinking about where am I overcompensating for this child or adult or what have you. Well, I'm just in the habit of doing it, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually is.
It's a very big deal, and I wonder, as a mom, we're both mothers, and how did you deal with this? Did you feel yourself getting pulled back in? You let go of them, you get pulled back in?
Well, I think so, and particularly, under stress or an event where you kind of released and things got messy. And that, I think, as moms, and we both know this, can make you kind of reach back and take responsibility again instead of working through why it got messy. And I think this is just with all children, parents can overcompensate for their child. But so I think that's one reason. I would say I don't feel like I've experienced this, though I watch for it. The other reason, Dr. Shaheen, is sometimes parents feel very comfortable in that role of the overcompensator. Whether they would identify it as that or not, it's almost a giving up of something, which I think a person living alone may not understand, but it can be more comfortable to overcompensate than to let go. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it can be satisfying too. I mean, if you think about the guardian relationship getting thrown off from the very beginning, or pretty early on, before the first year, before the first birthday, guardian relationship gets thrown off. And one of the ways you find yourself feeling like a good mom is to do things that are actually overcompensating things. And those things are often necessary in the beginning because the child is not learning from you, and so you simply do it because you don't know how to enable him or her to become independent in the things that he needs to be doing. So I think what happens is it starts out very early, and it starts out with the child maybe not being able to soothe himself, so the parent takes on the responsibility of not only soothing, but making sure nothing happens to upset the child. So you've really got a pattern in place that's not a good pattern for any of us. And I'm not just saying parents of children on the spectrum do that. I think a lot of us do that. And then because your role has become the role of a compensator and not a guide, you start compensating for more and more things. And sometimes children go past the need for compensation. They're doing fine, but you can't let it go because you don't trust that they're going to think they should be or they're going to be, or that something terrible won't happen, that they'll make good decisions. And so that compensation actually takes on a life of its own. And I believe that the compensation can, I'm not saying it always does, but I think it can take the place of a relationship, particularly when you think about the role of parents and children as being one of individuation, guiding an individuation and independence.
Wow. And I was touched by what you said about the self-satisfaction that a mom or dad can have by feeling that way. And I agree with you, it's not just of children with vulnerabilities, it can happen with all children, that we see that almost a fulfillment of a role for them that they get out from, which is nothing wrong from getting something from being another. For sure. But it's that process of letting go. And I feel I'm really saying that too simplistically, letting go. We're not talking about free fall. We're talking about being in the process. And I think with children who are vulnerable for whatever reason, we can form habits as parents that are, for lack of a better word, are enjoyable to us. I'm going to use a really small example, but maybe there's a nighttime routine or something that we come to really enjoy. But our child perhaps has become able to very independently take care of all those nighttime needs, yet we find ourselves in a place of just enjoying to take part in that. All parents can say that there's a certain giving up of that at some point because you realize what you said is it's time. Maybe recognizing the time with a child who's more vulnerable is more difficult.
And I think also another thing that occurs to me when I think about overcompensating is that if we don't have a clear plan for how we're going to help our child become more independent and more responsible and more capable, that has an inverse relationship with us giving up a little bit. If we don't see that happening, then we always feel like it's sink or swim. We don't realize that there are small steps before anyone learns to swim. We're not born fish, and so we don't sink or swim. Fish sink or swim, but we don't sink or swim. And thinking about those small steps, which in RDI we introduce so early on with the just noticeable differences and the challenges, and the parents considering, how do I help my child become competent, feel competent about himself, but how do I feel competent about him too? How do I open up this new world where he can actually operate pretty much on his own?
Well, I think about what we always talk about in RDI is that the relationship self to self is as important or more important than relationship with others. We don't have a relationship with ourselves. And how can the children fulfill that if they don't have that sense of, I'm doing this on my own, with my own self? It's almost, and I say this as a mom, but it's almost as if you're taking away some of that self to self.
It's an easy thing to do, and sometimes, I don't think we should key in too much on the parents being responsible 100% at least for overcompensating, because there's also some secondary gain of a special relationship if you're the person who's being overcompensated for. And I'm reminded of a family who was talking about independence, and I said, I feel like he can put on his own shoes right now. And when I said, but why would I want him to do that? And I realized there are questions to be asked. And there's a road we travel together with our parents when we're dealing with something that has become so successful and so basic. And so from putting on one's own shoes, we become people who drive cars and have jobs.
Exactly.
But putting on of your own shoes, I love that. I love that image of, a little guy putting on his own shoes and walking and taking off and getting ready to go on this journey that he's ready to go on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I look at that as really profound that you had that conversation, and it came to my mind, and I know this can get really complicated for parents, but all of us who've had children get older, go through pre-adolescence and adolescence and then even older, know it's just a process of let's take a little back, or let's take a little back. It's a process, and I do wonder sometimes with families, being on myself, that transition of pre-adolescence, adolescence, adulthood, there's a desire to keep them younger.
Absolutely. And you also have to wonder about something that nobody intends and nobody wants, but a child fulfilling a role as the family and the person in the family that is needy. So the person in the family is needy. And so the child takes on that role. Well, there's some gain to that because people look out for you and people make sure you have what you want, and nobody wants to rock the boat for you, and you sure don't want them to. So there's this special role you have, and that special role feels good. When you become an independent person, and we become independent in various things at various stages of our life, but when that person becomes independent, then they're also giving up their special role. They're just becoming like another brother or sister. And they're expected to do the things that, they're expected to get themselves up in the morning and take care of the morning routine and pack their lunches and get to the school bus on time, or whatever. But they're expected to do all this, and so there's nobody, I'll fix your lunch for you. No, I'll wake you up with a cold washcloth on your foot. You wouldn't know all of that. I was thinking everybody gives something up, and when overcompensation stops, everybody gives it up, and hopefully it's given up in such small steps that it feels good all along the way.
Yes, I think that's so important, kind of back to what we were saying in the beginning. We're not talking about a throwing in, but just throwing you in the pool and hoping you can swim, or a free fall. Well, I'm done doing for you. That actually is not a process. That's just I'm not doing this anymore. But I also think it's important for people to think about what you said, which is you have to have a plan, and revisit that plan on a regular basis, I think, don't you?
I think you have to have a plan, and I think you also have to have trust in yourself that, yes, I can help this child become independent. Trust in the child that, yes, the child can become independent. But Catherine, I think there's something else that haunts us a little bit in this process of individuation and, trying to not overcompensate. And I feel there's something that comes back and haunts us even when we think it's gone. And that's the trauma of hearing that this beautiful child you have has a problem, and that it's a serious problem, and that you're going to have to work on it. So you've always got in the back of your mind that kind of traumatic response. It gets triggered by who knows what, but it gets triggered. And I feel like as parents, when we think about those gradient steps for our children, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then you know what? You're going to go to school by yourself, and not only that, you're going to get yourself up, you're going to do your own homework, and you're going to get there, or all those other things that happen. I think we have to be just as conscious about the letting go, and that sometimes that PTSD is going to get triggered, and to recognize it for what it is. Because if we don't recognize it, it's going to feel like a truth, something speaking truth to us, and that anxiety we feel has to be felt because we have to go in and we have to stop the child from doing it or overcompensating.
Well, of course, as a parent, that totally makes sense, because you only have to blink and you're back in that moment when you're told this, and you're told, as you said, how serious it is, and in some cases told how hopeless it is. So those are some of the first seeds. Some of our parents have sown, and as much as wish that weren't the case, sometimes when professionals sow those seeds, are totally good intentions. I feel they're speaking truth, but unfortunately, it creates a moment not forgettable by parents. And so I like what you said about it's a haunting. I know that's, I think it's a good term, because I always think of haunting as hanging around.
And it's ghost-like. I mean, you can't really see it, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And it pops up. I think just understanding that may come back, and often will come back when you least expect it. Maybe it's one of those pivotal moments when the child is actually going to go off on a job and have his own apartment, and all of a sudden you feel the anxiety, and you just have to take over, do everything again. Just as a mother, I've done that.
I think of my baby was 2. If I'm telling this out, I know it's different ages for different people. My other thoughts are what's going to happen to him, and I think that's what's going to happen to him. It just keeps coming back into your mind. I think it's a really, it's a different phrase for different people in those moments, but what's going to happen to him, I think
another thing, I'm thinking back about this trauma of just getting the diagnosis. Nobody wants to hear this diagnosis. I mean, we have such great parents, and I'm just so blown away by how wonderful they are, but in the beginning, it wasn't like they were saying, oh, I hope I get that diagnosis. No, nobody wants it. And I know that in having conversations with parents early or shortly after the diagnosis, or having given the diagnosis myself, I just, in my heart, I just want to say something that says that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But I know that it's not going to be okay for them until it is okay. And so I've come to kind of say that. I wish I could say something that would take all of this fear and anxiety and sadness away. But I know that it won't go away until you actually see your child doing okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on that. But there is that feeling as consultants and as professionals wanting to ease that pain.
Well, and I really appreciate that about you and mindfulness. I think that means a lot to parents to know that you're thinking about them in that way, that you understand they need to hear the truth about the seriousness of the diagnosis and what we need to do. And as a parent, that's what I would like to hear. I think it's that moment is one of the most important in a child's life, and how they can go forward and how those parents can move forward. And you've talked a lot about feet moving forward, which I love, which I think about all the time. literally. And I was wondering if parents, your feet need to be moving forward too. Your feet have to go forward for your child's to go forward.
And you think about the overcompensation, how there's that parallel process between what consultants do, what parents do, where we start out by really being teachers with the parents that we work with, and we're explaining things to them, and we're actually setting up activities for them, and we're role playing, and we're demonstrating. But the parents, one of the first things they have to do to help us not overcompensate is they have to start evaluating their own work. And once they do that, and they start doing it really well, then they come up with their own ideas. And I see this with the college students that I work with, where they'll say, this is what I want to work on next. Or the parent will say, I was thinking that while I'm working on this objective, I'd like to use this to work on the objective. If we don't get to that place, and if we continue to overcompensate for the parents, that parallel process gets put into place between them and their children. So as consultants, we always have to be on the lookout for the possibility that we're doing that, and we are setting something in motion that we shouldn't be setting in motion.
Well, I always love your talks about the parallel process, and this is just another great one. If we're overcompensating for the parents, then they're overcompensating for their children, and then round we go. I mean, that is a beautiful, beautiful thought. And
but just like, but Kevin, just like for the children, where we don't want them to sink or swim, and we're carefully evaluating every session we have with a child is a mini evaluation. It's the same with the parents. It's a mini evaluation where I think you're ready to take on another piece of this. Let me give it to you and show you how to take it on.
This is a visual attention verification question. Please read the question, write it down, and respond appropriately. If you are joining via Zoom or in person, this does not apply to you. However, if you are doing it in the self-paced Google Classroom, please write it down and respond and to turn in the appropriate form in the Google Classroom. Please pause here if necessary. Sibling relationships are important to the family dynamics as well. While friendships come and go, you're stuck with your siblings. These relationships are oftentimes the longest relationships in a person's life. You are who you are because of this shared history, which makes the relationship unique and invaluable. The presence of siblings in the home affects the child's development. It does not have to do only with birth order. Having a sibling affects a child's social skills, and a child with a sister or a brother can often become more agreeable and sympathetic. Some research indicates that siblings in adulthood help alleviate depression and anxiety. People altogether are happier when they have positive sibling relationships. Research shows that siblings are integral in teaching one another how to interact socially. I know for myself, I am the oldest sibling of many, and so our births are like 1 year, another year, so it's like 92, 93, 94. So like before I even went to school, before I had a chance to go to preschool or daycare and make friends outside of my home, my siblings were my first friends. And I'm sure that applies to probably a lot of other people as well. Birth order. There are many theories that have been proposed about the influences of siblings, and stereotypes are aplenty. We always hear about that that crazy middle child, or that strong-headed firstborn, or the super spoiled babies or only children. The firstborn child is supposedly more conscientious and successful. The middle child is presumably excluded and embittered. The youngest is expected to be more sociable and persuasive. However, these characteristics don't always seem to hold up true in all research, and various studies have shown that birth order has no bearing on a person's predisposition.
Have you ever heard that the oldest child in a family tends to be very responsible, while children who have no siblings are far more likely to be selfish and demanding? Are these merely stereotypes, or is it really true? Today we've decided to find the answer to this intriguing question: how birth order can shape your personality. The birth order theory began in the 1920s with Alfred Adler, Sigmund Freud's friend and colleague. Adler believed that the order in which we were born into a family inherently affects your personality. Here is the theory. The firstborn child. According to Adler, the oldest child tends to be conservative, power-orientated, and predisposed towards leadership. They often take responsibility for their younger siblings. That's why firstborns grow up to be more caring, more willing to become parents, and more likely to take initiative. The middle child. The older brother or sister is a pace setter for the second child. That's why they often struggle to surpass their older sibling. The pace of development is higher. The middle kids in a family often tend to be ambitious, but they are rarely selfish. They are also more likely to set unreasonably high goals for themselves. This increases the number of failures. However, knowing how to cope with difficulties in life is what makes them stronger. The youngest child. As a rule, the youngest child gets a lot of care and attention from parents and even older siblings. That's why they may feel less experienced and independent. However, lastborns are usually highly motivated to surpass their older sisters and brothers. They achieve big success and earn recognition in their chosen field very often. They become the fastest athletes, the best musicians, and most talented artists. The youngest children in the family tend to be very sociable, though they're usually more responsible and frivolous than the older children. The only child. Without any siblings to compete with, the only child often competes with his or her father. Being overly pampered by their parents, the single child expects pampering and protection from everyone around too. Dependency and self-centeredness are the leading qualities of their lives. The only child often has difficulty interacting with peers. Many children who have no siblings become perfectionists, and they usually achieve their goals no matter what. Now, all of these lead to three important questions. Question 1. How does birth order affect IQ scores? There is a theory saying that the order in which you are born has an impact on your personality and IQ level. This idea has become very popular recently, however. It has also created quite a divide amongst researchers. Some dismiss the theory entirely, and others are convinced it plays a crucial role. Researchers from the University of Leipzig and Johannes Gutenberg, University of Mainz, studied more than 20,000 adults from the United States, United Kingdom, and Germany. In this study, they compared siblings within families and the orders of their birth. They found that older children generally show higher performance in intelligence tests. However, the scientists found no birth order effects on emotional stability and imagination. Question number 2. How does birth order affect your personality? Another study provided more evidence that birth order affects your personality. The researchers analysed personality traits of 377,000 high school students in the USA. They found that firstborns tend to be more honest and dominant. However, they are also less social and less resistant to stress. Middle children tend to be more conscientious and diligent. The youngest child in a family is more likely to be open and sociable. Kids who have no siblings are often nervous, but they're also quite outgoing and social. And finally, question number 3. Is birth order really that important? You have to admit, the results of these studies have a number of inaccuracies. The research doesn't take into account important social factors such as ethnicity, education, parents' welfare, and relationships within a family. Birth order may have a certain impact on your personality or intelligence. However, don't forget, the parent-child relationships and the upbringing that children receive in their homes are much more important factors in shaping their lives as individuals. Do you agree with all of this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments down below, and hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this video. If you're visiting our channel for the first time, click subscribe to stay on the bright side of life.
So fostering bonds between siblings is going to be important as a parent. There are several things you can do to foster stronger bonds among siblings, regardless of whether they're biological, step siblings, or adopted. Teach them emotional regulation. Talk about feelings, label their feelings. Differentiate between feelings and behavior. Identify and encourage healthy coping skills. Give consequences as needed. Don't show favoritism. Studies shown that perceived favoritism increases conflict among siblings. Promote positive time together. People who grow
Bridget, you have a call on line 1. Bridget,
people who grow together by having positive experiences together. So it's important to create opportunities for siblings to have fun with one another. Encourage cooperation. Focus on cooperation rather than competition. Talk about how you're all on the same team and you have opportunities to help one another. When you work together as a family, everyone can learn to cooperate. Model healthy conflict resolution. Allow them to practice compromising, sharing, listening, and when it's healthy to do so. Sometimes it's best to sit back and allow them to work things out rather than referee every disagreement. Fostering close bonds between siblings could help your kids grow up to become best friends, and even though siblings are going to fight and squabble, working out their differences can help them prepare for adult relationships with other people and with one another. They'll have better social skills, they'll be better partners, and they'll set a positive example for others. And also be a positive example when it comes to fostering sibling relationships. How to encourage good sibling relationships. Like we said before, don't compare your kids. Figure out what is the source of the conflict. Teach siblings to appreciate each other's differences. Have them team up for chores. Build their listening skills. Teach them the importance of respect. Show them how to respectfully disagree with one another. Emphasize family bonding and make more time for fun.
The importance of sibling bonding and activities that strengthen it. A child's siblings are arguably some of the most important people that will cross his or her path in life. They are his first friends, his greatest rivals and best buddies all in one. By encouraging a deep bond between your children, you will give them a gift that lasts a lifetime. 1. Lifelong friendships. One of the most important reasons to encourage sibling bonds is because your children will be each other's first and hopefully best friends throughout life. While other relationships will come and go, your children will always be family to each other. Your children's relationship with each other is in some ways even more important than their relationship with you, because if you all have similar lifespans, your children will continue their relationship even after you are gone. Make the effort to convey the importance of your children's sibling relationships to them. 2. A deep understanding of each other. Because your children will likely grow up in the same home and with the same set of parents, there is an understanding they have of each other that no one else will have. They alone will remember how you were as a parent, with all your great qualities and annoying habits. They alone will grow up in a family that is one and the same. This is invaluable and a great privilege, as children with no siblings don't share this bond with anyone to the same extent. 3. Better health. Harmony within the family leads to increased health in every area. When your children are fighting and failing to connect with each other, they will have an increase in stress levels as well as health issues, whether it be mental, physical, or emotional. Strengthening sibling bonds leads to an atmosphere that is more peaceful, and that calms and nourishes your child in every way. 4. Activities in teamwork. One great way to increase bonds between your children is to encourage activities that strengthen their teamwork mentality. Choose activities that are unusual and that you rarely do, to give them a chance to see each other as teammates rather than just big sibling or little sibling. Things like puzzles, sports and playing musical instruments together promote learning to work together as a team instead of just coexisting. 5. Fun activities. When family has fun together, their relationships grow naturally and without effort in those moments. Use this to your advantage, and spend time doing activities such as swimming, hiking and playing board games. When summer arrives, let your children put on the sprinkler, jump on the trampoline and eat their lunch together picnic style outside. These carefree times will give them memories that last them a lifetime and that they can look back on together in the future. See every moment as an opportunity to facilitate bonding between your children, and it will shift your perspective. Sibling bonds are some of the most important bonds that your child will have throughout his lifetime. They will strengthen your child as an individual and as part of the family. Nurture these bonds and the outcome will be one of your greatest joys in life. And if you want to learn more, I recommend you click the link in the description to discover how to deal with behavior problems in children. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter and Google+. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Sibling rivalry is discord between siblings that's abnormal, because some is going to be normal. Conflict can come in many forms. 80% of siblings are verbally aggressive, 74% push and shove, 40% are physically aggressive, which can include hitting, punching, and biting. Among adult siblings, studies show that roughly half speak to or see one another once a month. The other half communicate less frequently or not at all, and they are more likely to engage in competition and rivalry. The culture idealizes the potential of loving sibling relationships, but in reality often falls short. Sometimes we just can't get along with our siblings. Rivalry may start as early as age 3, and at this age, children have a sophisticated grasp on how to use social rules. They can evaluate themselves in relation to their siblings and possess the developmental skills necessary to adapt to frustrating circumstances and relationships in the family. They may even have the drive to adapt to get along with a sibling whose goals and interests may be different than their own. Sibling relationships work best when each member appreciates the similarities between them and also respectfully note their differences. If they do experience discord, it is eventually resolved, as opposed to a wound that is maintained as a part of the family narrative. Having a shared history gives siblings a connection that helps them navigate life, and it's a bonus when they enjoy each other's company. There's also toxic sibling relationships where no matter what, those siblings are going to fight. They're not going to get along, and there's nothing we can do to really help that.
In the past, we've published many videos on toxic family dynamics, and some of you have requested that we explore toxic sibling relationships. Our goal is to spread awareness of family dysfunctions and make this difficult topic more approachable. We know that many of our community members are young and may be experiencing domestic trouble. If you're in a situation where you cannot leave your dysfunctional household just yet, we pray for your safety and want you to know that you can receive help from professionals. In our description box below, we've provided some helpful resources that may come in handy, such as the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Remember, your priority is to keep yourself safe, and these resources can help you do just that. Here are 5 types of unhealthy sibling relationships. 1. The golden child and the scapegoat. These types of siblings often grow up with a parent who is either a narcissist, sociopath, or a psychopath. The golden child is the parent's favorite because they mirror their values, beliefs, and habits. The parent thinks in black and white and considers the child the good one. Since the parent lacks empathy themselves, the golden child does too. They were never yelled at nor punished for treating others with the same cruelty, so they assume it's correct behavior. Unlike the golden child, the scapegoat learns to question the parent's black and white thinking. Refusing to follow their illusions, they may be quietly rebellious and seek perspectives other than what their parent enforces. Consequently, the scapegoat is seen as the bad one in the parent's eyes. The scapegoat learns to be empathetic because whenever they challenge the parent's thinking, They are reprimanded and told to be more understanding. While the golden child repeats the same toxic patterns as the parent just to get along, the scapegoat tends to break them and searches for a more meaningful life after they leave the family. 2. The royal brat and the wise owl. The royal brat is spoiled by the parents. They learn to get their way by being loud, manipulative, and stubborn. The parents usually give in to their tantrums and are more concerned with pleasing them and protecting them from difficult emotions. Consequently, the royal brat never learns how to work through their impulses, anger, nor sadness. Meanwhile, the wise owl is the complete opposite of the royal brat. The wise owl is mature, responsible, and level-headed. Since the royal brat always gets their way without having to lift a finger, the wise owl has to achieve the same results through hard work. The royal brat tries to take the easy way out by pushing the wise owl to do things for them, but the wise owl refuses to yield. Consequently, the royal brat gives the wise owl a hard time. Whether the royal brat lacks emotional maturity, the wise owl is disciplined and reliable. 3. The bully and the victim. This relationship is similar to that of a dominant parent and a submissive child, but happens in siblings instead. The bully in this scenario often has a challenging relationship with the parent and feels like they have no control over anything. So they learn to be a bully and take out their anger and frustrations on their sibling instead, usually their younger one, who becomes the victim. The bully wants to come across as tough and intimidating, so they make the victim feel small and helpless by abusing them emotionally, verbally, and/or physically. 4. The addict and the enabler. This codependent type of relationship is propelled by an enabler who acts as a caretaker for an impaired sibling who usually struggles with addiction or mental illness. The enabler protects and takes responsibility for their sibling because they feel like their relationship or even their lives will fall apart if they don't. They often think they're looking out for them when they justify their actions, but in reality, it's only hurting the addict in the long run when their problem isn't confronted. Often, the addict and enabler already have parents who play similar roles, so they learn to mirror them. 5. The ghost and the hungry child. The ghost is someone who is emotionally distant from their whole family in general. They don't know how to cope with the chaos that happens every day behind closed doors, so they fade into the background. Meanwhile, the hungry child always longs to get a little closer to the ghost. They lack love and support from the family as a whole and yearn for someone to hold on to. The hungry child often hopes to find love from their sibling, but in the end, they're usually left with an empty void once again. So, the hungry child searches for love elsewhere, outside their home. Do you have a difficult relationship with your sibling? What other types of unhealthy sibling relationships do you know of? Share your thoughts with us, and if you have a special topic request you'd like us to explore next, make sure to let us know in the comments section below. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more helpful tips and share this video with others. With your help, we can...
This is an audio attention verification question. Reflect on your sibling relationships. How did those relationships, if you had siblings, impact your upbringing? Was there any rivalry? And if your children have siblings, what are some ways you can foster healthy relationships between those? If you don't have any siblings, you can skip that question or think about like maybe someone that was close to you as a sibling, like a cousin or a friend or something, or somebody who you spent a lot of time with, and then the same with the bottom one. If your children don't have siblings, just hypothetically, if you were to have adopt a kid or have a step family or have a new kid, what can you do to foster those sibling relationships? If you are in the Google Classroom, you do have to do this. However, if you're in any other form like Zoom or in person, you do not. Please pause here to write down the questions and respond if necessary. taking charge. So this isn't siblings taking charge, this is parents taking charge. If you ask a child psychologist and development experts, children are becoming more dominating than ever. They're bossy, they're demanding, they're insatiable, they're defiant. I have witnessed all of this with my own children. Kids don't actually want to be in charge. These kids are often frustrated or filled with anxiety, so it comes out as being bossy, demanding, defiant, etc. Sometimes they're also struggling with their own mental health, such as anxiety, ADHD, stuff like that, feelings of doubt. Out of insecurity, they try to tell us how to take care of them. It's like they know someone needs to be in charge, and since we're not doing it the way they need us to do it, they turn the tables on us. So to take charge of your children, find your inner alpha, your inner boss. So like, I know everyone's like, use your mom voice. Find it first. Find your mom look. I know I have one. Scares the crap out of my kids. Choose your battles. I know we talk about that a lot. Some things aren't really worth exhausting yourself over. Such as if there's a conflict over something like holding your hand in the parking lot or going to bed at a certain time, you can let them maybe have a little bit of flexibility sometimes. Resist the urge to argue, connect, then correct them. So like a compliment sandwich, connect with them, then give them the correction, and then go back to being that positive person. Only give perceived choices. So if you're okay with them doing this or that, you give them those choices. If they're like, what do you want to wear today? Would you like to clean your room tonight or tomorrow morning? And then if they choose tomorrow morning, I know I always explain to my kid, like, well, you know you have school at 7:30 in the morning, so that means you're going to have to wake up early to clean it if you do it in the morning. Set expectations, and then meet their needs, not their demands. So their basic needs, food, water, etc. When they're demanding something, definitely don't give it to them, because then you're teaching them that they can be in control and that they're really the ones that are in charge. So to reduce power struggles and regain control over your children, here are some videos on how to do so.
And here's what's incredible. When parents get it and when parents start to acknowledge, I just told them what to do, they feel that their emotions about it or their thoughts about it don't matter. So they're trying to take back some control when they feel they don't have any. As soon as that connection is made, the power struggles begin to lessen and eventually reduce and go away. Because what children want is to have a measure of control. Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. When I meet with parents at my practice, they almost always tell me they wish they could crawl inside my brain so they could absorb everything that I know about kids and parents. As a result, I started this video series so that you can get the benefit of my insight into kids and how to effectively parent them. But most importantly, you get my perspective into your children's struggles viewed through the lens of play therapy. Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. Today I want to share with you some information and insight about one of the primary reasons you might be having struggles with your child's behavior. One of the most consistent complaints and concerns that is brought to me at my practice when I meet with parents is that their children are disobedient, they don't listen, they argue, they throw tantrums, they have outbursts, they have meltdowns, they refuse to just comply and agree and do what is asked of them. And one of the key realizations that will take place throughout the course of treatment when a child in a family is working with me is the parents start to make the connection that the root of almost every single piece of those experiences is a power and control struggle. And what I mean by that is we don't often recognize how powerless our kids are and feel. And imagine being completely powerless over your circumstances. You're told where to go, when to go, how to go, why to go. There are always expectations. There are always rules, and this is what you need to do. And there's just a constant stream and pressure of, I expect you to do these things, and how you feel about it doesn't matter. And what that does is it produces frustration, defiance, and power struggle as a result. And here's what's incredible. When parents get it and when parents start to acknowledge, I just told them what to do, they feel that their emotions about it or their thoughts about it don't matter, so they're trying to take back some control when they feel they don't have any. As soon as that connection is made, the power struggles begin to lessen and eventually reduce and go away. Because what children want is to have a measure of control. And all you have to do as an adult in a child's life is to make sure that they're given measures of control. And I can already feel the questions coming. Well, Brenna, what does that look like? How can you possibly give a kid control when they're 5 years old and they want to run out in the road and they can't because that's a safety issue? The beauty of returning power and control to kids is that you can use the process called choice giving. And what that means is they are given choices so that they feel that they have some power, but the choices are determined by you. So it's not free reign, do whatever you want, you get to decide everything that happens, but they're given an appropriate choice. So child wants to run ahead in the parking lot and you preemptively say, I know that you're excited to go into the store, but the parking lot isn't safe for you to run in. That's the limit setting process. So if you're familiar with the pillars of play therapy, what I just did was the first 2 steps of limit setting. Then the third piece is the choice giving. So then, let me backtrack so that you're on track with me. I know that you're excited to go into the store, acknowledgement of feeling, but the parking lot isn't safe to run in. Limit. Offer the choice. Here's where the power differential shifts. You can choose to walk next to me, or you can choose to hold my hand. Which do you choose? Notice that with either choice, the child stays safe, which was the goal. And so the boundaries and the parameters were already set. You can choose to walk next to me, or you can choose to hold my hand. You're okay with either. So you still have control over him being safe in a parking lot. But all of a sudden, the child is given the power to say, oh, do I want to walk or do I want to hold someone's hand? But they get to decide. And it still keeps them safe, but it reduces the power struggle. Power differential is probably the most under-recognized and over-exaggerated struggle that parents and kids have. I see it all day, every day. Parent wants something, child wants something else, and they're going to power struggle over it. The immediate and easy solution to that is providing choices so that power and control is returned to the child. Kids are faced with very few things over which they have control. And often it's bathroom habits, eating habits, sleeping habits, obedience, and compliance. That's about the end of their list. So you can see when you tell me to do something, I'm going to say no because I'm power struggling with you. But all of a sudden, if it's, do you choose to do your homework as soon as you get home from school, or do you choose to do it after dinner? Which do you choose? Homework is still getting done, whereas before, homework might have been a huge fight. Do your homework. I don't want to. You have to. No, I'm going to go outside and play. No, you can't go outside and play. I told you to do your homework. You're not doing anything until your homework's done. I'm not doing it. I hate homework. And that's how it goes. It escalates, and it just becomes this big power struggle. But all of a sudden now, when do you choose to do your homework is the shift, and the child has a measure of control. Well, I would much rather do it right away so that then I can go outside and play. Or I want to go play now, and I want to be able to do my homework after dinner. That would be awesome. So the power struggle, the power differential, and returning power to your kids is a huge source of encouragement. It's a huge relief in the power struggle that often takes place between adults and kids. So I hope you find that helpful. Please make sure that you're giving your children choices when you're able to do so. Please make sure that you're acknowledging what they feel. That will also help eliminate that power struggle. But more than anything else, recognize that if you're having struggle with your children and their behavior, it's probably rooted in that power and control hungry child that has been birthed out of feeling like they're powerless a lot of the time. So easy solution, give them a little bit more control by giving them choices, and you should see a huge difference. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you again soon. Bye.
So we need to, when we're talking about power struggles and regaining control over our children, we also need to examine the reasons why parents often give in. What are some reasons that parents tend to give in and allow certain behaviors such as tantrums or repeat actions occur on a regular basis? Some of these could be parents give in to children for many reasons, such as being too tired, both mentally or physically. They're trying to be the cool parent, or they're overcompensating. They think if I give in to this, the behavior will stop. They'll make a deal, or they'll say just this one time. There's lack of consistency and follow through, and it also could just be your parenting style.
Some tips today for positive parents about teaching children respect in 10 minutes or less. I promise it's going to be 10 minutes or less. I've asked hundreds of kids this question: what does it mean to respect? And the most common answer I get: be nice. Wow, how simple. And if kids can understand this, can we teach them about respect in a short period of time? Yes, we can. I said 10 minutes or less on the title of this video. I've got a definition for respect that is very, very close to what those kids are saying: to be nice. And part of this comes from a podcast interview that I did with Kevin Hall. Kevin is the author of the book Aspire, which is a really inspiring book where he takes a look at different words and the power of those words in our life. One of the words that Kevin taught me is genshai. Kind of like gun shy, only genshai. And it means treating someone in a way that never makes them feel small or insignificant or unimportant. I think that's a really great definition for respect, that we always treat someone in a way that helps them to feel important and to feel that they are a significant person on this planet. That's where I'm going to start with the definition. Now, respect, as we teach kids about respect, there's different ways to help them to get to know this. I like to put it into 3 simple rules, all of which have something to do with respect. These could be your household rules. It's so much easier to remember 3 rules than it is to remember a whole list of rules. And you think about your kids, they're always going to be creative enough to find something that's not on the list if you've tried to be comprehensive. These 3 rules, I think, cover everything that you might be concerned about as a parent, and it helps to teach children respect in a very short period of time, maybe 10 minutes or less. Rule number 1, respect yourself and others. Let's use the kids' definition. Be nice to yourself and others. I was watching a video here on YouTube from Julie Hunt and Smart Kids 101. In this video, which you can link to right up there, Julie gives a fun little demonstration of one way to teach kids about the power of their words and how hard it is to take something back once you've said it. If it's not nice, or if it is nice, once you've said it, it's out there. The example that she shares in her video has her drawing some lines on a piece of paper with a marker and then challenging the kids to squeeze out a tube of toothpaste to cover each of those lines as fast as they can. Not hard to do, and kids love squeezing toothpaste out of a tube. The next task is that Julie gives them a knife, and they are to take that knife and scoop up the toothpaste and put it back in the tube as fast as they can. How do you think that goes? Yeah, not so well. That's not an easy thing to do. You could try that yourself if you wanted to. This is just a fun little activity that I think is a good example of one way to teach how important it is to be careful about what we say, because it's hard to put it back once it's out there. Great example. Thank you for that example, Julie. Rule number 2, respect property. Do you remember those hundreds of kids that I interviewed? And I asked them about property. What is property? And the most common answer is, it's my neighbor's yard. Yeah, because their mom has told them, hey, stay out of the neighbor's property, meaning their yard, right? Yes, it's the yard. It's also stuff. It's all of the things that are owned by the people that we talked about in rule number 1. Respecting property. What does that mean? We can go through a quick example with the kids about, what about your shoes, for example? Where do they belong? Either on my feet or in my closet on the shoe rack. What if I throw my shoes in the living room? Well, that's not respecting property, because respecting property means you put things in their place. And respecting property means that you take good care of your stuff. And respecting property means that you don't take something that belongs to someone else without asking. And respecting property means that if you do borrow something from someone, you return it in at least as good a condition as it was when you borrowed it. Kids pick this up really fast, so use a few examples like that. What does it mean to respect property? Rule number 3, respect authority. There's 2 elements to this that I like to talk about that have to do with respect. Cooperate and obey. There's a little difference between cooperation and obedience. Who should we cooperate with? Really, anyone who is asking us to do something that's right and reasonable, who isn't asking us to violate Rule 1 or Rule 2. We should cooperate with them. So what does that mean about respecting your little sister? What if she wants a little bit of help picking up some toys that are on the ground? Should you cooperate with her? Because she's not the boss of you. Yeah, it doesn't have to do with her being the boss of you. It has to do with respect and cooperating with someone who's asking you to do something that's right and reasonable, that doesn't violate Rule 1 or 2. What does it mean to obey? Obedience is different from cooperation. Who should you obey? Someone who has authority over you. This is what I mean by respect authority. Now, who has authority over you? You can think of a few people, right? When we're talking to the kids, number one is your parents. Your parents you should obey. Why? Because they have authority over you. Who else has authority over you? Teachers, police officers, judges, people who are in charge of whatever organization you belong to? Yes, all those people have some level of authority. Respecting that authority means that you acknowledge their position and you obey. These 3 rules are a quick way to help children learn about respect in 10 minutes or less. Isn't that awesome? I hope you found this helpful. Please follow.
Okay, let's go over to the house rules. The children are very excited about moving into the new house. They don't know that we're going to have new rules and new expectations. I think that the kids are going to be in a bit of a shock. This here says house rules. This is what we are all going to follow in this house. In our new house, this is what every... Lawrence, come here. Hey, Dad, bring the children over, please. I'd like you all to look at me, please, because I'm going to say something. Mum and Dad are talking to you about the house rules. I'd like you to listen, stay in one place, and do as you're told. Okay? This is your warning. If you choose to not to listen to what I am saying right now, then I am putting you straight into discipline. Right, stand up, all of you, please. Now, we are going through the house rules. Respect home.
You don't have to respect the exterior.
We have to respect every corner of this house.
Oh, even this corner?
Okay, how's Christopher going to listen to you?
Christopher, listen here.
Ask him to look at you, okay? Look at Daddy while I'm talking to you.
That's not right, Christopher.
Why?
That's not right. When Dad, Mom talk to you, you don't speak this way. Let me give you...
Disrespectful. Is he being disrespectful to look at you like that? Alright? So look at your father like that, and to pull that face is being disrespectful. I'd like you to look at me, please. You're going to end up sitting on the reflection chair and being disciplined. Christopher still showed attitude, even after a warning, so now it was time for discipline. Come down, please. I'd like you to explain to Christopher why he's in this reflection chair. What is it that he didn't do?
We want you to be a good kid. We want you to grow up properly, be a useful person for the society.
That's definitely great stuff, but for now he needs to know why he's here. You stay here for 9 minutes. You're here because you didn't listen to me. There's your book in there. I'd like you to write down why and the effects of it, please. You know better. The children do 1 minute per their age in the reflection chair, writing about what they did wrong. After the reflection chair, the children go to the communication couch to talk about what they wrote.
Okay, when Jojo's talking and tell you to do something, and you're not listening, you do your own things. Do you think it's the right thing to do?
No.
Okay, is that the same thing you want the people to do to you when you're talking? Do you want to see that happen? What do you think now? And what are you going to do in the future, Christopher?
I'm gonna listen to Jojo and do what she says and do what you and Mom says.
And again, let's hug.
Yay!
I'm done.
Thank you.
That was a fantastic analogy.
Thank you.
And you sat down and you explained and you asked him to look at you when you were talking. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Wonderful communication pouch. Wonderful. Wonderful. When I realised this woman had no control. Nothing.
So another thing we need to talk about is adequate parental supervision. Supervision is the act of directing and watching over the performance and activities of your children in your care. Supervision requires more than just simply seeing and hearing the child. It requires to be alert and responsive, know where your child is, be able to see or hear your child, be near enough to your child to render immediate assistance, and provide supervision of appropriate to their age, needs, capabilities, activities, and as well as like knowing the location of the child. Adequate supervision varies based on the child's development and maturity and the risks within the child's environment. Consideration should be given to issues as wide-ranging as swimming pools, falls, dating, violence, social media, also potentially even like neighborhoods, so like if there are registered sex offenders in your area, etc. By considering the likelihood of harm and the severity of potential harm, caregivers may provide adequate supervision by minimizing risks to the child while still allowing the child to take small risks as needed for healthy development. Caregivers should initially focus on direct visual, auditory, and proximal supervision, so like being close to them, for young children. And gradually supervision needs to be adjusted as the child develops, emphasizing safe environment and safe social interactions with graduated levels of independence. Positive attention is when you respond to your child with warmth and interest. So like smiling at your child, making eye contact, celebrating, hugging, just showing interest in your child's interests and activities as well as their achievements. Positive attention helps your child feel secure and valued, and it is important for your child's self-image and development. You can use everyday moments to give your child this positive attention. And I know we've talked about before why it's important, but from birth, children need experiences and relationships to show them that they're valued, capable human beings who bring pleasure to others. Positive attention, reactions and responses from key grown-ups that they may have in their lives help children build a picture of how valued they are. Your child's self-image builds over time with positive, loving messages from you and other people that are important to your child. A healthy self-image is very important not only for your child's relationships with others, but also for your child's confidence as they learn about the world. Your child's feelings of security and safety come from responsive interactions with you and others. If you smile at your child when they look towards you, or reassure your child when they're frightened or uncertain, your child will feel safe and secure. This gives your child confidence to explore the world around them safely. No matter what your child's age is, there are simple things you can do every day to send the message that your child is special and important. For example, look at your child and smile, show interest in things that they're doing, ask the child to tell you about things if they can, pay attention and listen closely when your child talks, create special family rituals you can share together, make time to be with your child, to do things you enjoy together. Praise your child when they try out a new skill or make an effort towards something. For example, if they made a really wonderful drawing, like ask them like, where did you learn to shade like that, or where did you learn to draw that? These next couple of slides are going to be positive attention tips by age, and for time's sake, I'm just gonna ask that if you have a child in this age range that you pause and read it, because there will be a question about them to answer later. So here is newborn to babies positive attention tips. Toddlers, preschoolers, school-age children and preteens. I would probably also include teenagers in there. This is a visual attention verification question. Please write down the question and respond. Those of you who are doing it via Zoom or in person do not have to participate in this, but those of you doing Google Classroom, self-paced, do. Pause here if necessary. Providing an affectionate and supportive environment. Loving, stable, and responsive relationships are fundamental to your child's development. Children's relationships shape the way they see the world and how they learn about their world. It's not just the relationship between you and their child that shapes that development, but also their relationships with others, like aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. Through relationships, children learn to think, understand, communicate, behave, express emotions, and develop social skills. The way you behave and communicate with other people, for example, your partner, family members, co-workers, friends, show your child how to be and behave with others. It also shows your child how other people will behave in return. If your child sees kind and respectful relationships being modeled around them, your child will then learn to be kind and respectful with others. Playing with your child strengthens your relationship and encourages your child to explore, observe, experiment, and solve problems. A simple game of peekaboo is a great example of how relationships and playtime together will help you develop in other areas. Your child develop it in other areas. Warm and loving interactions between you and your child develop your child's confidence, resilience, and communication. Your child needs these skills later in life for working through problems, dealing with stress, forming healthy relationships with other people in adolescence and adulthood. Strong attachments and relationships early in life also mean your child is more likely to have better mental health and fewer behavioral problems later on. How can love help your child succeed? Love helps your child's mental well-being. It makes them physically healthier. It increases your child's brain development and memory. It creates stronger bonds between parents and child. It makes your child less fearful and more well-rounded. So how can you show your child love? There are many ways that a parent can show love and affection for their children. When children are younger, parents need to show affection through physical demonstrations such as hugging, cuddling, holding children. Mutual games are also a great way to show love and affection. In the toddler stage, holding hands while you walk is a good way, and has the added benefit of giving them that sense of security for both you and them. Having a discussion with your child is another way to show love. And as children grow older, parents can show affection in non-physical ways, such as paying attention to children, remembering and celebrating important moments in their lives, vocalizing their love, and like giving them hugs and kisses before bed. So how to give unconditional love. So that's another important part for our kids, is they need to know that no matter what, and even if like that guy says that you're going to love them no matter what. So commit to self-compassion, make and repair a connection, and like make that a way of life. So if something's damaged, then you show that you're willing to repair and reconnect. Experiment with a mantra to retrain your brain. Meditate, give yourself love and support that you need. And the most important thing that children need is love. Love makes their brain grow, it supports and improves their self-esteem. Parental warmth makes kids healthier, and believing in your children improves their grades.
In February, everyone starts talking about Valentine's Day. At the American Academy of Pediatrics, we'd like to offer some tips on showing affection for your kids. One of the most important gifts that you as a parent can give your child is to help your child develop self-esteem. Start by celebrating victories and giving perspective on losses. Praise children for their hard work, heart, and effort rather than labeling them super athlete, great artist, or genius, which can stress them the next time they're challenged because they worry that they'll lose that special title. Family activities are important. Eat dinner together, schedule family game nights, and read to your children, starting at birth.
Make a family media use plan to make sure your child doesn't overdo digital media. Use plenty of positive and encouraging words with your child, and try to avoid using sarcasm or mockery. Children often don't get the humor, and they may imitate the joke on peers. Invite their friends over to help foster healthy interpersonal skills. Make an extra effort to set a good example about how to connect and talk with other people at home and in public. Use words like "I'm sorry," "please," and "thank you." Respond promptly and lovingly to your child's physical and emotional needs. A quick hug, cuddle, a pat, or other affectionate signs, followed by a conversation later after they've cooled down, lets your child know they're loved, even when vulnerable and upset. Consider a pet. Having a pet can help make some children, especially those with chronic illnesses and disabilities, feel loved and connected. Use non-violent forms of discipline, no spanking, but don't be too lenient either. Allowing rules to be broken without discipline only encourages more broken rules. Your pediatrician can be a resource to help you navigate your child's developmental stages and come up with some strategies that work for your family. Finally, never forget these three important words: I love you. For more information, visit healthychildren.org or talk with your pediatrician.
So this is a video on parental burnout and how to avoid it, and then that will be our final video and slide for this section.
Parents are often typecast as people who never tire out. From feeding kids all hours of the night to being at every Little League game or band concert, they're often cast as superhuman. But as obvious as it sounds, parents aren't magical, limitless beings, and they can get burnt out just like anyone else. Well, maybe not just like anyone else. Research is starting to show that their brand of burnout seems to be unique. And by learning to identify it fast, we can help avoid it. Psychologists define burnout as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. We often associate it with school or work, and until somewhat recently, this was the main way psychologists thought about it too. But lately, they found that parenthood leads to similar effects. A study published in 2014 used testimonies from 901 parents, and it identified 4 main factors to parental burnout. First, people felt exhausted while parenting, though not necessarily while doing other things like being at work. They also felt like they were losing pleasure and fulfillment in their parental role. And finally, burned out parents emotionally distanced themselves from their children and were prone to contrasting parenthood with their lives before kids. Those first 2 traits are pretty similar to career burnout, but this study showed that the last 2 are unique. Workers don't tend to dwell on their pre-job lives, and they're also prone to dehumanizing the people they work with. In a way, burned out parents don't seem to dehumanize their kids, which is reassuring actually. Using these 4 traits as a starting point, you can measure parental burnout with surveys that ask parents to rate how true statements feel. Things like, I sometimes feel as though I am taking care of my children on autopilot. And these surveys place the frequency of parental burnout at anywhere between 2 and 12%. That's a whole lot of tired parents. But this research was done on parents in Europe, so the numbers could vary by culture. We'll learn more as studies continue. Still, considering parental burnout can impact the level of care parents provide to their kids and themselves, it's important we learn how to identify and reduce it. So how do you figure out when someone is at risk? There seem to be a few ways. For example, researchers have looked at the well-tested Big 5 personality traits, and they suggest that high levels of neuroticism and low levels of agreeableness or conscientiousness might make parents prone to burnout. These are traits associated with having a hard time maintaining positive emotional relationships, responding to other people's needs, and keeping a well-structured home environment. Things that could make existing parental stress worse. But on the flip side, aiming for perfection can cause burnout too, as one 2018 study on Japanese parents pointed out. As any motivational speaker will tell you, no one's perfect. And chasing that impossible goal can set someone up to expend a lot of physical and mental effort. That exertion, along with the eventual realization that there's no way to be the perfect parent, can be demoralizing and send someone into burnout. Finally, And more generally, some researchers believe the balance between parenting risks and resources is a big player in burnout too. When the resources at hand, including money, support, or time, aren't enough to meet the demands of parenting, that leads to more stress. And if that stress is sustained, burnout becomes more and more likely. Thankfully, spotting this stress early can help avert disaster. If you notice a parent constantly striving to meet unrealistic goals, it might be time to check if they're doing all right. Helping them avoid burnout could be a case of providing more resources to tip the balance, like offering to take their kids to Little League practice every other week. For parents, taking time to decompress can also be a great option. Hiring a babysitter or sending the kids to a relative's place for the night might provide enough room to rest and recalibrate. But those options can be costly or impractical and might not be an option for everyone. So an upcoming 2020 paper suggests a more accessible option. Talk it out. Talking about struggling as a parent can feel shameful. There's a lot of pressure to be the world's #1 parent, like it says on all those coffee mugs. But engaging with people or groups that acknowledge that parenting is hard can lighten the load. Research in other areas of psychology has shown the power of expressing yourself in a non-judgmental atmosphere, and psychologists believe it could be just as effective with parental burnout. So yes, science is endorsing getting it all out on parental Facebook groups. Share all the memes. Just be sure you're not yelling into the void. Talking to other people rather than just talking is key. At the end of the day, burnout is probably not what people hoped for when they became parents, but progress is being made about how to identify and avoid it. I mean, babysitters and rides to baseball practice aren't magical cures, but the more we recognize burnout for what it is, a real thing, the better off we'll be. Thanks for watching this episode of SciShow Psych. If you want to know more about psychology of parenting,
That concludes part 2 of week 8. If you could take the quiz and do any assignments associated with this week in the Google Classroom. And then, as always, there is the voluntary class survey to tell us how we did. Thank you.